Hi everyone. Um, I've been contemplating about my circumstances. Sometimes I'm just sort of, I would say, I'm thankful for what I have, but at the same time, I'm kind of not happy feeling stuck here so much. And it's like I'm constantly feeling like, I got to get ready to go and that type of thing. So I've been sharing that, and and I'm playing on YouTube. I came across a Peter Hook video, Peter Hook of New Order slash JodyVision, and he was talking about how you never want to become comfortable in order to be a great artist. So once you become comfortable, and I think anyone that's followed a career, for example, might find that to be true with some of their favorite artists. My father says that some of these bands start out really great because they're struggling in life. They're young, they're struggling, and once they make enough money, then they don't have that same emotional fuel. And I've mentioned this type of thing to my friend Rosie too, the older woman I've mentioned that I lived with here. And Rosie's been around the music scene and stuff. She's what I call a West Coast hippie, right? Been around a lot of musicians and stuff. And similarly, I was saying, it just seems like really great music comes out of like England and Europe. Like some of the music I like. And she goes, well, yeah, that's because those people are struggling. They're, then they have that emotional drive. And so when I'm talking about like New Order and Joy Division, all those bands from up in that area, for example, and yeah, and I guess certain parts of Europe may also experience some what they have the aftermath of like the world wars and stuff, and so seeing that stuff around all the time, and that they would still see occasionally stuff like that, like maybe buildings that have been bombed and they're just surrounded by factories. Anyways, yeah, it's interesting. An interesting point that Peter Hook was making. I felt like it was a confirmation I needed because I felt like sometimes I just get tired of. I feel like I'm always kind of struggling more than I'd like and not really getting ahead or getting anywhere. And it's like, well, I like to think maybe I just have a maybe I just have a slower, longer process than the average artist does, or people usually find their career and their path by the time they're my age, and I've always known I'm an artist, so that's kind of what my whole situation is like. I've always known I'm an artist, and so that's kind of what this not this whole channel. My channel is Jody, but I've created a playlist I call the JodyVision. I really like to talk about some of the things I think that could contribute to my life as an artist, and I think some of that is being exposed to unusual things in my life that I've talked about, as well as going through the martial arts training, the music I grew up with. I feel like all this stuff helps contribute as influence to me, and seeing what it takes in the long run, what I really want to have in the long run for myself as an artist. And so that's where I want to break down a few things. Now, I do feel like I've been struggling and feeling uncomfortable. Like since we moved to the Florida Keys, I never felt like we belonged there. I always felt singled out. Just these type of stories, And so from there to just trying to survive, I just feel like maybe I've made some bad decisions or maybe some wrong decisions. But then there's karma. Like I was really meant to go through the martial arts training, but if I was thinking I was going to make a living doing kung fu, I had the wrong idea, for example. But I like to think all that's been a good part of my journey, becoming an artist. Because if you look at the term martial arts, martial artist, that's artist training all the way. And I'm going to tell you why. I'd really like to talk a lot about why Shaolin is central to my training. And an important part of Shaolin, I think that it taught me more, because I've been looking for what is real magic. I feel like it's really helped me to see what is real magic. That's why I needed to see it, because I'm looking for what is real magic. And my music selection, the music I like, I feel like also helps answer that question, what is real magic? And sometimes it's not like it's not what you think. It's just it's principles in nature that apply to all of us, and it usually has to do with how we apply ourselves as a force in nature, because we're conscious presence and we can make decisions as a decision making kind of thing. So, so anyways, I really appreciate that piece of confirmation. Now there's been, of course, I'm really lucky for a lot of reasons. I know things could be worse, but just sort of being made to feel uncomfortable all the time. I never really feel settled down. I've been packed up for a long time, and so it's like, I guess if I were to join a band and travel around, I guess since I'm not used to feeling stuck someplace, or I don't feel like I'm really settled someplace, then maybe that's something that would help me in the long run. Having to move around, never feeling settled. But being uncomfortable helps you find your strength. So when you something's making you uncomfortable, you respond by improving the situation. If nothing's bothering you, you're going to relax and be lazy. So that's where all this is coming from. So we're trying to figure that out. Now, being a martial artist, I ended up in jujitsu eventually, and that's something we talk about. When we fight and spar and train, one person's on top, one person's on the bottom, and sometimes the worst place to be is on the bottom. And when you're learning jujitsu, you learn to fight from the bottom, and you'll have somebody holding you down, and it's damn near impossible to get out. And for me, I have a couple of problems with my ribs and stuff, but that's not everyone's problem. But breathing, I'll be winded. I'll be like, I have a little bit of breathing, and so that's definitely all about learning to cope with being uncomfortable. So it's part of our philosophy of martial arts training. That's what you grow out of. And I like to think, trying to put things in a positive light, like, the things I like to complain about are actually some of the things that are making me stronger and wiser, making me more aware of things I need to change and stuff like that. So, because some of the stuff I want to talk about is, so like, I've been telling the story about going into the visionary state, and from about the age of 6 to the age of 18, it was kind of going unnoticed. And once I realized it was happening, it was no big deal. I kind of put it together real quickly once I realized what was happening, and I just sort of like put it on the back shelf, and I really didn't think about it much. But so that's kind of the easy part for that reason. But it's just that later on, from the age of 18 to 24, I continued going into those visionary slips, and it sort of built up a scenario where I wanted to contact this guy. I knew him as Billy, and he turns out to be Bill Lebo of Frontline Assembly. And so me and my dad have been listening to this band, and I realized who he was. So after I moved to Denver, I was finally convinced to contact him and go meet him. And so that's what I'm talking about. So that's where, I kind of want to, kind of give a heads up about the stories I'm telling when I go to the visionary state. I've tried to do some preparatory talk about kind of what I believe and how I think things work, like going into the visionary state, what exactly is it? First of all, it's real, and the only question I have left is I'm not sure who I'm talking to, so it's very important to be open-minded either way. Like, so there's a lot of people out there and throughout history who feel that they've been visited by God or angels and things like this, and they tell them important messages, and you gotta watch out. Like, that might be impressive, like they might come to you in a very mystical way or whatever. And since I've experienced that myself, and I want to be, so I'm like a skeptical person going through stuff that skeptical people don't believe in, right? So the reason I'm becoming more open-minded, because I'm seeing it for myself and I find confirmation. So that's the bottom line. Anyways, it's not new, like going to visionary state, and so that's why, other people out there have great advice for us, like, that might not be God, that might not be an angel, so or whoever you're seeing in the visionary state. And there was a movie called Contact, and I think that it demonstrates a similar event to what I'm experiencing when the lady went into the parallel dimensional state. The being there said, "I'm not really your dad. I'm just trying to take a shape you can recognize." So in my case, I might be experiencing something similar when I go into the visionary state. I've been meeting this little boy named Billy, who claimed to be Bill Lebo of Frontline Assembly, and some of the things I was able to put together. So that's where it's kind of showing me where you can receive information that's remote to you. And then so later on, we're going to see instances where I have the chance to time travel in the visionary state, see a glimpse of the future, and then relive it. And so it's showing me different ways information can be transported to the past, So, I mean, you could do that alone psychically or by going into the Akashic records. But then I think what we're talking about here is I'm communicating with another being, and it's showing me possibilities. So I want to be careful with that. But it's calmed down a lot, and I haven't experienced it in a long time. And there were times I was being told this is part of my education or something. Anyways, one of the things coming up is in my visionary state, I was being told that Armageddon is really going to happen, and I will have visions about this eventually. And so that's why, I've been sitting here going, I wonder what the thing is with Bill leaving Frontline Assembly, because I feel like I failed to make the connection, at least a good connection, and so for many years I've struggled with, why is this happening to me, because it got really embarrassing. And I feel like I've had a lot of people kind of go off on me. I've had a lot of people yell at me and kind of shake their finger at me for this. And that's a big part of what makes it so bad. That's why I call it the crazy making experience, that I'm going into here. And that and I'm sure it's all for a good reason and everything. That's when I have faith that this was meant to like help demonstrate how this works. And it was also meant to help make me aware of a lot of things, because I'm going, well, I really want to go into the music business and do stuff like this and get involved with people like this. And it's like, well, I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to contact Bill Lieb if I wasn't encouraged to do so in this way. And so, like, if I go in to do that, it helped to expose the narcissistic system that's surrounding him, and that's just all over that music scene. Like, it isn't what it used to be or what it was meant to be. And, so I'm looking for, like, industrial music, or, like, what came after industrial music. And actually, Frontline Assembly is, like, one of the best ones like that. Like, I just feel like all the people that, they were inspired by industrial music. There's like this wave of what we call like post-industrial. A lot of them are like they're kind of hybrid. It's kind of like rock and techno, industrial together. Like Ministry sounds more rock. Frontline Assembly adds more techno, but it still has a rock, type of thing. So it's all, it's industrial rock, techno industrial rock, whatever you want to call it. And then you have to like sing like a monster. That's how you do industrial music. So, yeah, so none of these people can sing, so they just like do voices and stuff, right? So, anyways, so my life experience, I think I'm in pretty good shape as I am. So that's where, like I might talk about, I was drugged through this situation, drugged through that, drugged through the dirt one way or the other. And at the end, I think I'm doing good. I think a lot of people would go through the same thing I talk about. Maybe they'd have their own version of it dealt out of them. I think it would break a lot of people down. So it's like one of those things will break you or make you. Anyways, so I think it's exciting in hindsight, now that I'm not in the middle of it. It's kind of like, when you're in the middle of something and you're confused by it, you don't know what's going on. It's just all around you. But then you get out of it and can look back in a more of a third person type of way. And then there's a lot of things that came after that. So that's kind of like why I think of it as a section. Because then after I got through that, I sort of, I don't know, between that and moving to Montana, there's a few colorful things there where I thought the visions quit happening, but I found out that they still kept going. And so before I left Colorado to come to Montana, I had a couple of visions where Bill had a girlfriend after he got the divorce that he was staying with, and I was told that she was going to put me in touch with him someday. And so when I moved to Montana, I got on Facebook, and she found a way to kind of ensnare me, and she, in a roundabout way, gave me his number, but it was meant to kind of start a fight. So I got Bill Lieb's number and called it, and so that turned into another episode. So that's sort of like another section of my life. And then things just went to shit, and I actually like gave up on him for like 8 years. I waited and waited till she was all gone, and then I came back and wrote him a letter and called him, and he's like, oh yeah, blah blah, real nice and friendly guy. So he's never really been mean to me. Bill's always been friendly, and he's always just like, oh, how are you, are you, like, he'll ask me, he'll remember things I told him, like, ask me if I'm still living like in the same place and all that, and still doing this and that. And so I felt like, getting a hold of him was like getting a hold of like my uncle or something. So I always feel like this vibe with him, like, like he's kindred. He seems to be caring enough. Like, it's like maybe not extremely personal, but because of some of the information I've given him, like we've been listening to his band since 1987. That's like 35 plus years, and I still like it very much. And, like there's stuff I listen to still and still think that he's somebody that's important to me for whatever reason. So maybe he appreciates that. Like, even if he can't reciprocate, it's like, well, thanks, I appreciate that. Like, on some level, it's like, what's wrong with that? I mean, so I appreciate it when some people come along and they tell me how much they love me and all this, and people want hugs or whatever. I appreciate it. I mean, sometimes I can't reciprocate it, but, I mean, it's better than a kick in the ass, isn't it? So, so Bill's sort of like, well, you're welcome to call anytime and blah, blah, blah. And he's always been like, like that's kind of what happened like 25 years ago. I felt like, he was willing to come to my house or whatever, but then it just seems like the other people around us always don't want us to talk to each other for some reason. And so like 25 years ago, his wife came to town to stop it, and I didn't understand what was going on for a really long time. And then next opportunity I have to be in touch with Bill, there's another girl there. She did everything she could to stop it, and she tried to do everything she could to embarrass me too. So in a roundabout way, it's like, I look at the first section of the story and I'm thinking, well, maybe Bill Lieb is there in my visions to show me, what I should be doing with my life. This is the music I want to be in. This is, the ideas I like. In fact, maybe I should even go play in his band for a while. That's what I was thinking. And then I go meet him, and it just seems like, I got run down. I just got turned into an asshole. And it made me feel bad for a really long time, just, the way it played out. So that's something I want to share a little bit later. So the point in telling you this much is it went from being sort of like unnoticeable and then thinking, hey, that's kind of inspiring. Maybe I need to go into the music business. And even then, still put that on the back burner a long time. But having that encounter and these different things come along just made me feel like, I almost feel like the only reason Billy was put in my life this way was to torture me and exhaust me. It's just been exhausting. It's been difficult, and it's just been one of those things that are making my life uncomfortable, making me uncomfortable with who I am, because I think, I'm a pretty good person and everything. But I feel like, some of the stuff that's going on here, it's just like, people want to tell me, Jody, you really need counseling, and you need to, you're crazy, you're delusional, you're obsessing over the things you're imagining, all this type of thing. And I feel like, a lot of this isn't fair to me, and that's why I've been going out of my way to explain what happened to me. Because I feel like, well, if it happened to you, and people try to say, oh, Jody, I know what you're going through. So I have this one friend, I actually met her because she used to talk to Bill Lieb, and she's saying they're not friends anymore, but she's trying to tell me she knows exactly what I'm going through, because she used to have the same thing with Ogre of Skinny Puppy. Like, she used to have dreams about him, and I'm like, she doesn't know what I'm talking about. And so people like that want to tell me, basically they're just trying to shut me up and just trying to, like, I don't know, like, she has an agenda. So like the people that want to tell me not to talk to Bill Lieb, I feel like they all have an agenda, and they're all like, oh, well, he doesn't really like you, he thinks you're crazy, and he's just a nice guy, and this type of thing. And so there's been certain people that have been just like barking at me to like get away from him, while he's just going, oh no, you're fine, everything's fine, there's no problem, just everything's fine. And so like it's been one of those things. So that's why I wanted to kind of explain like what I'm getting into soon enough. So I feel like the very next thing I need to do, since, Bill Lieb has been coming to me in my visions, and then we've gone through this really exhausting and difficult spell of time, but it was leading up to something that was sort of different, like, so when I did the time travel thing, I felt like, boom, it made me aware that I've been going into the visionary state all the time, and that leaves me open to wonder, like, if this happens to him or not, like, this is stuff where, like, Bill Lieb won't answer any of my questions, he really won't say anything back, and that's where I wonder if there's stuff he wouldn't tell me, like, like maybe he could care less about what I'm talking about, and he's just being a nice guy, but just because of the way everything's built up, that leaves me with a lot of questions about what if he's not, what if he's holding out on us, because something I've learned about him is he doesn't always tell the truth, and he keeps a lot of secrets, and you know what I mean? He's just sort of like, he doesn't want anyone to know what he's thinking, what he's doing, that type of thing. Not, like he's a deceptive person or anything, but, kind of protective of, doesn't want people to know. Like, so for example, like if he cared any more about me than what he's showing. For example, like he's not going to tell any of these other people that are fighting tooth and nail to get rid of me, right? He's got to tell them, don't worry, I absolutely think she's an idiot, you know, like, don't worry, she's crazy, I don't want nothing to do with her, whatever they need to hear. And so he'll tell them that, and then they'll come back and be like, ah, yeah, he said this, and, you know, so that's how they kind of, you know, try to use that as ammunition. And so it's like, it turned into like, kind of reminds me of like, you know, when I first moved to Florida, and I was the new kid, and all the kids that used to pick on me, like that one kid caught me like kind of going like this, you know, and she's like, "Oh, you're picking your nose." So I pretended to eat it. There was nothing on my hand; it was just itching inside my nostril, and that made me. I don't know if this was kindergarten or first grade, but I was called booger eater for a long time after that. I think practically the whole time we were in elementary school. It just became my reputation as the booger eater. And so what happened is, you know, I wrote to Bill Leave and told him I remembered him from when I was a kid, but I'm kind of thinking it was a vision. And, you know, like, if anything, like, I don't care, you know, like, he was my boyfriend and all this stuff, but that's a long time ago. If anything, I felt like I was interested in, you know, joining his band. And if I can't join his band, I was kind of hoping he would tutor me or, you know, help me, you know, educate me and stuff like this. And so, like, that was kind of the gist of it, you know. I'm kind of a trippy person, you know, like I also had a really cool dream about the dude from Cab Voltaire and stuff. So like, I don't know, I just have cool dreams about people sometimes, so it doesn't mean anything, but I thought it was a good indication to reach out to him and think about joining his band, you know. And so that turned into like I was trying to, like, I thought Bill was gonna come to my house, you know. I thought he was like interested or whatever, so I was just trying to tell him, listen, I live right up the street, and this woman comes in, and it's like, hey, whatever you do, don't let that psycho bitch take you home. And so that's like where everything, you know, that's the point where the negativity started, as far as I'm concerned, because I feel like in the long run, people have been making me accountable for all the drama. Well, that's kind of my fault for the way I've reacted, you know, but it really started with this moment, and then I'll get into how this started. Basically, it was as if his wife came all the way to Denver and ran a smear campaign against me, and was telling people that this psycho bitch was trying to get his husband in. So from then on, for a very long time, I became the psycho bitch, you know. So I had to be psycho bitch. So I went from booger eater to psycho bitch. So I went to the FLA keys when I was in kindergarten, and I got labeled there. Then I went to play keys for FLA, and then I went and I got labeled there. And I was really disappointed because I really thought like industrial music and all that was going to be my refuge, or where people were going to love me. And I get there, and it's like, oh my God, it's worse than, it's not what I expected. So anyways, I think it'd be fun to I've been really wanting to get down to explaining, you know, since Bill Leaves coming into my visions and stuff, you know, I want to state kind of where I'm at with that, like how I feel about that and stuff like that. So that way, like when I tell the rest of my story, I kind of want you to understand how I do feel about them already, but this is what I was being led into. This is what I'm thinking now before we get into that. And, you know, and I also want to talk a little bit how I feel about, I don't know, maybe that could be fun to just, you know, go into that a little bit. So just a stopping point before I move forward in my story. So anyways, I think it's an interesting piece of what you call confirmation from Peter Hook that that never getting comfortable is what can help make you a great artist. And once you start to get comfortable, by the way, you can end up like, you know, someone like Paul McCartney, for God's sake. So anyways, you guys have a good night, and I will talk to you next time.